At the best of times, Palestinians used to say they faced discrimination and poor treatment within Israel's penal system. After October 7th, being arrested can be a death sentence without trial. I'm Anelise, Borges, and on today's show, we look into what it means to be detained by Israel at times of war. We begin in Gaza with Fadi Bakar's story of imprisonment and torture.
تم اعتقالي في تاريخ 5/1/2024 بالقرب من منزلي. رحت على منزلي كان مهدوم، استصلحت منه بعض الشغلات، وبعدك تواجدت في مكان قريب من بيت اسمه دوار الدحدوح. المكان هذا كان معايا شباب، كنا رايحين ندور على طحين وعلى مواد تموينية بسبب المجاعة اللي كنا نعيشها في هذاك الوقت. واحنا متواجدين في المكان هذا تم اطلاق النار علينا من قبل الجيش الإسرائيلي. استشهد معنا شابين وانا اتصوبت، كلت طلق نار في رجلي اليسار وفي ايدي اليمين. بعد ال4 أيام نقلوني لمكان اسمه الديسكو. مبنى الديسكو هذا جردوني من كامل ملابسي. هي عباره عن غرفه مساحتها 4 متر في 4 متر، عباره عن حصمه الفسكورس. نيموني على ظهري 4 أيام وانا مجرد من ملابسي. ضرب، تعذيب، تكسير ورا راسي مباشره، سماعه تصدر ضجيج، صوت موسيقى عالي جدا، لدرجه داني اليسار صارت تنزف دم بسبب المكان هذا او بسبب السماعه هذه عفوا. موجود هوايه فوق البرد وفوق ما انا مجرد من ملابسي. الهوايه هذه كانت بتضخ علي هواء بارد. 4 أيام وانا على هالحال. كانوا في فتره ال4 أيام ضرب، تكسير، وضعوا صقل على محاشمي بحيث انه صار عندي تضخم في الاجهزه التناسليه. كانوا طفوا السجاير عفوا في تمي في جسمي، لغايه ما دخلت غرفه المحقق، لبسوني اوعيه، دخلت غرفه التحقيق. ضرب، تكسير كانت عباره فقط. هي مش غرفه تحقيق، كانت غرفه انتقام. ضرب، تكسير فقط لا غير. 4 أيام فيش طعام، فيش شراب. في اليوم الخامس جابوا لي نص خبزة فينو ونصف خيارة فقط لا غير.
And for more on what Palestinians go through in Israeli detention, we're joined today from Ramallah by Barca Odeh, a human rights activist who has just been released after 3 months of Israeli detention, and Basil Nasir, brother of 23-year-old Layan Nasir, who has been taken at gunpoint by Israeli soldiers from her parents' home in the West Bank on April 7th. The family has yet to be given information on why she has been detained. Barca, let me start with you. You've just spent 3 months in detention. How much of what Fadi just described resonates with your experience?
Thank you for having me. For the Palestinian female prisoners, the beginning of the arrest, there was physical and psychological assault by the occupation. Also, the way that I got arrested, it was more, it looks like more like a kidnapping, as they started with, I was arrested from the borders while coming back from abroad Palestine. And they told me, or I've been told by the occupation that they only want to ask me a few questions, and all of a sudden I'm in front of a military jeep waiting to arrest me with 1 unit of military occupation, and I have to fight to at least to tell my family or to make a phone call with my family to tell them that I'm being arrested. Basically, what Fadi also was telling us, it's what the Palestinian prisoners are going through with the female prisoners. Most of the female prisoners that I have met, including my experience, we have been physically and psychologically assaulted by the occupation. The circumstances today at the Damon prison is really critical when we talk about medical circumstances and health situation for the female prisoners. We're being undermined by the occupation with regards to pain or medical conditions for Palestinian female prisoners. And when it comes also to food and to the condition of the prison itself, it's very alarming, and it needs international community move right now.
And as we speak today, do you even know why you were taken?
Basically, when I got arrested, I kept asking why I'm being detained, and the only answer that I got, when you come with us, you would know. And basically, there's not even an interrogation, it was more questioning. And when I asked about the reason, and I'm not going to collaborate unless I know why I am being in question now, and I'm being informed that I'm going to jail, and they told me, okay, then you don't have to answer any questions. We're just informing you that you're going to be under administrative detention, which is basically they can hold me without any fair trial under the reason of secret files, basically. So until answering your question, I have no idea why I lost 3 months in my life. From my life to spend in the prison and without any basically reason.
Basil, your sister was taken, as we described before, in the middle of the night. Can you tell us, I know this might be difficult for you, but can you tell us a little bit more about the circumstances of that arrest and what you know about your sister's whereabouts today?
Yeah, actually, I wasn't in Layan's last arrest because this is the second one. But my family were in the house, my dad and my mom, and it was really violent. And I think my parents are still trying to process what happened up until now. It was a very violent raid of almost 20 soldiers to the house, and my dad and mom were held at gunpoint and asked to raise their hand in front of the wall and not move or talk or do anything. Meanwhile, the soldiers were searching around the house and in the rooms inside. So it was, and whenever they tried to talk, the soldiers were shouting and preventing them from saying anything or even saying goodbye to Layan, as she was handcuffed and blindfolded and sent away to a place we didn't know for a few days until we got information that she is held at Addameer prison, and then she was moved to the administrative detention, which is basically an indefinitely renewable charge, let's say. It's not really a charge because you don't have any charges under the pretext of a secret
evidence.
file.
And have you been in touch with her? Were you able to communicate with your sister since then?
Unfortunately not, especially after October 7th. There's no radio. We used to talk. You used to talk on the on one of the local radio stations, and they could hear us on the other side. Now it's we can only send messages or our news and updates through the lawyers, and it depends how much they can remember and recall, because they get inside and they don't have any paper to write down what we are trying to tell them. And same goes for when Layan sends her news and asks about us. So there's no real communication. I haven't seen Layan since 3 months. And this is, I think, the longest period of time we've been separated as twins. We've been together even before birth. So yeah, it's been really hard.
Yeah, I bet. Bara, can I ask you about what's been the hardest part of this detention? In 3 months, what do you remember? What are the memories that keep haunting you?
Basically, several memories, to be honest, is still haunting me until today. One of them is the blue door, basically, which is the only thing that we could get fresh air from. And this reminds me of the Palestinian female prisoners now during the summer, with small cells, basically overcrowded, and they definitely don't have the proper even any instrument for fresh air, basically. And like for me, the most hardest part was being isolated from the whole world. So we didn't even know what was happening outside the wall of the cells. We couldn't know if I dream about my family, if there is something happened to them, I wouldn't be able to know if they are okay or not. We did not have any connection to the world. I think that was the hardest part. Also, feeling that it's there. that we were useless in terms of helping the other, for example, Palestinian female prisoners who are pregnant now. There is now a female prisoner who's in her 9 months of pregnancy, and she will have her due date in any moment. And during our recess, or the 1 hour that we have every day, basically because we were 23 hours in between the four walls. And in this 1 hour, we basically witnessed pregnant women. They are suffering basically, carrying their babies and without any even proper food to be fed, not only to the baby, also to themselves. The food that we had, like I still being hunted also by the food. Now I cannot eat well, because I also think about 78 Palestinian female prisoners that are being held basically with food is not eatable, not only not eatable, it's not clean also, and it's not enough. All of these, it's in our everyday life, it's basically hunting us every minute, not only every day.
And I imagine it's very hard for Basil to hear these things as well. Basil, if your sister were to be watching us right now, would you have a message for her? Or would you rather send today a message to Israeli authorities about her? The floor is yours.
Of course, I won't send any message to the Israeli authorities. I just want to tell Layan that I love her so much and miss her so much. We're hoping to see her very soon, even though the conditions of administrative detention means that we can't. There's a lot of ambiguity in terms of when we can see her, or we're never certain when she's going to be released. And also the court, the trial, she from her first release, she was released from her first arrest, she was released on bail, and she's still under trial. So this makes it all hard.
Basil, Bara, thank you both so much for sharing your experiences here with us on the stream. And now for a broader look at the legal context and consequences of these arrests, I would like to welcome to the show Noa Sattath, the Executive Director of the Association for Civil Rights in Israel, ACRI. She's joining us from Tel Aviv. And from Ramallah, Jenna Abuhasna, an International Advocacy Officer at Addameer, a prisoner support and human rights association. Thank you both so much for your time. Noa, you're the head of the largest and oldest human rights organization in Israel, and the issue of Palestinian prisoners is not new. But can you tell us what changed since the start of this war on Gaza?
So the conditions have been less than ideal before the war, but things have deteriorated in massive ways since October 7th. And from the first day of the war, there have been attempts both to reduce transparency in terms of denying lawyer visits for a long time. Some of the prisoners still don't have lawyer visits, and the banning of the Red Cross that has been visiting Palestinian prisoners since 1967 continuously. They've not been able to visit prisoners since October. So that means that all of us have to rely on missing information and do not have the full picture of what is going on. So that is one thing that we've seen. The other is we've seen attempts to deny basic human rights from prisoners. We've heard from Basil about starvation in the women's prisons. We think that is happening across all of the prison system, and also other types of abuse, denial, tying people in their cells, overcrowding, and blindfolding prisoners. And in addition to that, there is the new detention center in Detention, which was built exclusively for Gazan prisoners outside of the prison system, where we've heard of even worse torture than that.
We'll get
so basically, we're trying to monitor all of those issues in different ways.
We'll get to that a little bit later. But Jenna, according to Addameer, we went from 5,000 Palestinian detainees to over 9,000. These numbers we've never seen before. And one of the biggest issues is the so-called administrative detention that our previous guests were talking about non-stop, which, according to the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem, is incarceration without trial or without the person having committed an offense on the grounds that that person plans to break the law in the future. As this measure is supposed to be preventive, it has no time limit. The person is detained based on classified evidence that is not disclosed to them. Jenna, what does this mean for detainees?
Yeah, so that's correct, because before October 7th, so prior to October 7th, there were around 5,000 detainees, a little bit over 5,000 detainees in total, and there were around a bit over 1,000 administrative detention detainees. However, after October 7th, there are currently over 9,300 detainees, Palestinian detainees in total, and over 3,400 administrative detention detainees as well. So again, these numbers have not been seen before, and these are new conditions. Well, the conditions, of course, themselves are not new, but due to the high mass arrest campaigns that have been occurring, it's led to an immense increase in the violation within the prisons. And since October 7th alone, there has been 9,400 arrest campaigns, meaning that 9,400 Palestinians have been subjected to arrests by the Israeli occupation. So not all of them
on the issue of administrative detentions, I mean, it just means that they are in limbo, basically. They have very little knowledge of why they're detained or for how long they will be detained for.
Yes, exactly, because administrative detention is an order given to around 80% of the Palestinian detainees that are held by the Israeli occupation. And it is one of the biggest issues that the lawyers face when defending Palestinian detainees in court, because it is built on secret evidence kept in a secret file that the lawyer and the detainee do not have access to. So only the Israeli judge and prosecutor would have access to this. So that means that any Palestinian can be subjected to administrative detention, and the problem that it makes for detainees is because they can be indefinitely held within these prisons based on no charge, based on no evidence, and not knowing when they might be released.
And I would like for us to talk more about Detention, this military base Noah just mentioned, where mainly detainees from Gaza are held. We spoke to a Palestinian lawyer who was granted access to the site and describes conditions as worse than anything we've heard about Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo.
الحياة اليومية تكون هكذا. هم عمليا يجلسون على الأرض، هم يجبرون على الركوع على الأرض، مكبلي اليدين والرجلين ومعصوبي الأعين. يعني كل فترة اليوم على مدار 24 ساعة هم بهذه الوضعية، معصوبي الأعين، لا يروا ماذا حولهم يدور، يمنع لهم التحدث مع بعضهم البعض، باستثناء حالات بعض الدقائق الاستثنائية التي يسمح للأسرى بإزاحة هذه العصبة عن أعينهم فقط وقت الاستحمام، وهي عبارة عن دقيقة واحدة أسبوعيا لكل أسير. الحالات الأخرى التي يسمح للأسرى بإزاحة هذه العصبة والنظر حولهم هو وقت الطعام، وقت الدخول المرحاض والاستحمام.
Noah, you talked about the lack of transparency before and the difficulty we're facing in terms of getting the full picture of what's actually going on inside these sites. But what are the members of your organization hearing when it comes to torture and abuse inside this particular facility? And how are you trying to put the pieces of this puzzle together?
So we have filed an appeal to the Israeli Supreme Court to shut down the detention center. And that is based on testimonies of people who have been released and Israeli doctors who have served in the prison, and some information from the media. And all of the evidence that we have points to torture, both in the sense of prisoners being tied in the cells. In our petition, we've had testimonies from doctors who've had to perform amputations on prisoners who have been tied for so long, so their limbs had to be removed. We have additional evidence that the prisoners are not held in cells but in cages, that they do not have access to bathrooms. Some of them are held in diapers, that they are blindfolded constantly in the cells, and that they are tied all the time. All of those elements add up to torture.
I mean, that is horrific stuff. How come we're still witnessing that kind of treatment? And Jenna, your organization has also talked about men, but also women and children and the elderly submitted to similar treatment. What do you know about the people inside this particular military base? Are there women and children there too?
It is unclear. A lot of information is being kept from Palestinian human rights organizations and from family members of these detainees as well. It's very difficult to tell who exactly is held in these camps, as Detention and Anelise military camps. However, we do have some testimonies from released detainees that have said that there are children there being held as well. And everything that was described, the torture, is all occurring to men, women, children, and elderly, not just in these two military camps, but across all prisons, across all of the occupations prisons, both the one here in the West Bank, Rafah prison, and the other remaining prisons that are illegal in the occupied territories.
Noah, I'm curious about the work that you do. You guys have a very wide mandate, which I imagine makes it hard for you to navigate certain contexts, makes you not very popular sometimes. And I'm curious to know how your work has been affected by this war, especially when it comes to protecting and trying to defend the rights of Palestinian prisoners.
I mean, what we're seeing across the board in this war, both inside Israel, in the West Bank, and in Gaza, is an abuse of power and an overuse of power. We're seeing that inside Israel in terms of police brutality against Israeli demonstrators. We're seeing that in the torture of prisoners. We're seeing that in the permission of settler violence that is just going wild in the West Bank. And we're obviously seeing that in overuse of power and this indiscriminate use of power in the war on Gaza itself. So across the board, we're seeing a deterioration of human rights, and the insistence that human rights need to be respected for everybody, including prisoners, is a challenge. We are seeing some progress in our petition that we filed. We had a hearing on May 23rd about Detention. There were 750 prisoners in Detention there. Now the army is reporting that they are only holding something like 140 prisoners in Detention, but we are going to persist until they shut down the detention center where the conditions are specifically inhumane. And we have a long way to go. Just for example, we have an ongoing petition against the banning of the ICRC, the International Red Cross, from visiting prisoners. Today, the state asked for another extension in responding to the appeal, the extension number 11, and only now were they denied. So only now are we getting to scheduling a hearing. It is very, very hard work. We're getting a lot of attacks around this type of work, but of course, times of war are times where protection of human rights is even more important than ever.
Jenna, one final word from you. Would the closure of this military base be enough, or what do you hope to see in the near future and in the years to come when it comes to Palestinian detainees?
We hope to see the dismantling of military courts. We hope to see the complete stop of the use of administrative detention against Palestinians and the targeting of every single Palestinian, no matter their age or gender. Complete, of course, dismantling of any of these unjust systems that are used specifically only against Palestinians, because these military courts and the order of administrative detention are not used against Israeli settlers in the West Bank. And they're only targeting Palestinian detainees. So, of course, an end to all of this, and an end to the genocide and to the unjust situations and systems currently going on.
Jenna, Noah, I would like to thank you both very much for joining us here on the stream today. It's been great having you. And thank you all for watching. Don't forget, if you have a conversation or a topic that you would like to see featured here on the stream, this is very much your show. We're always open to your suggestions. You can use the hashtag or the handle AJStream, and we'll look into them. Take care, and I'll see you soon.